The Absolute, the Perfect, the Alone, has called out of the silence his mute force, where she lay in the featureless and formless hush, guarding from time by her immobile sleep the ineffable puissance of his solitude.
Okay. I would say where she lay in the featureless and formless, where she lay in the featureless and formless hush.
Where she lay in the featureless and formless hush.
You feel the difference?
Yes,
Yeah, good. Guarding from time, okay. So we'll go through that. We did some of that already, right? We did
yes,
that
we
last.
did.
We continue on now.
The Absolute, the Perfect, the Alone, has entered with his silence into space. He has fashioned these countless persons of oneself. He has built a million figures of his power. He lives in all who lived in his vast alone. Space is himself, and time is only he.
What more can we say?
Yeah. So we begin from here, this one.
We begin from there. We covered the other. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the third time.
Yes.
But now he changes it, not alone, but immune.
Mm. The Absolute, the Perfect, the Immune, one who is in us as our secret self, our mask of imperfection has assumed. He has made this tenement of flesh his own, his image in the human measure cast, that to his divine measure we might rise. Then, in a figure of divinity, the Maker shall recast us and impose a plan of Godhead on the mortal's mold, lifting our finite minds to his infinite, touching the moment with eternity.
12 lines. Wow. So this is the third time we have heard about the absolute and the perfect. But now we have the immune, someone who is totally resistant to anything. And that one is in us as our secret self. And because it is the divine, he has assumed our mask of imperfection. And he has also made this tenement of flesh, our body, his own body. Not only that, but he has put his image in our human image. So we are seeing now that Mother says when she saw her divine body, that it was basically the same as a human body. It was sexless and it did not have to have any food. It could live on the environment. You've read it in the agenda, I think. It's very beautiful when she explains this whole thing that she has seen. So Mother and Sri Aurobindo have made this tenement, the tenement, of course, is a building for human habitation, but it's often referring to the soul in the body. And that's from a dictionary, a figurative statement, often in reference to the soul in the body. He has made this tenement of flesh his own, his image in the human measure cast. could also say his image in the human measure cast, that to his divine measure we might rise. So he had to come down into a human body and accept all the necessities of the human body. He had to eat, he had to urinate, he had to have bowel movements, he had to live in the heat of that room. So many things. So his image has been cast in our form because he wants us to rise to his divine measure. And then when we do rise in a figure of divinity, he's going to recast us. In other words, once we achieve unity with the divine, even in that second tier of higher mind, illumined, intuitive, overmind, going into supermind, then he'll recast us. Not before that. Not,
But once we enter higher mind, it already starts the recasting.
no, no. It has to, we have to rise first to his divine measure. We have to have the realization of the transcendent, the cosmic, and the personal divine.
Mm.
And so, you know the story of Nolini, that his assistant, Anima, reported, and it's only reported, and some people doubt it, but I don't. She said, "Where do you live?" And I said, "Always in the overmind, and sometimes a little higher." He was touched. So when we arrive and ascend to his divine measure, then he's going to recast us. Now, the word impose is a very interesting statement. He's going to impose this plan of Godhead on our mortal being. It's going to lift our finite minds to his infinite. Touching the wall with eternity. Now he's going to tell us some more. He's going to, oh, this is so beautiful, this passage. Okay.
This transfiguration is earth's due to heaven. A mutual debt binds man to the Supreme. His nature we must put on as he put ours. We are sons of God and must be even as he. His human portion we must grow divine. Our life is a paradox with God for key.
This transfiguration is earth's due to heaven, colon. No full stop there. A mutual debt binds man to the Supreme. Why is it a mutual debt? Can you tell me?
Because we are a portion of the Supreme and we are meant to become that. So that is our debt to the Supreme to become like Supreme. And also Supreme's debt to humans because
Okay, it's a mutual debt.
yeah.
The divine put on our nature.
Mm.
And that's something that we are indebted to him for.
Mm.
So it binds us to him, this mutual debt. Our aspiration to rise higher, but he's taking, it's often called the supreme holocaust. Divine's taking birth in a human body and reducing, diminishing all his power and force because he's transcendent divine.
Mm.
He is everything. He is everything and more than everything.
Mm.
In the synthesis, Sri Aurobindo writes, all that is he, and
Mm.
is the more than all that is.
Mm.
And we, though we know it not, are being of his being, conscious with a consciousness derived from his.
Mm.
So we are sons of God, and we must be even as God, because
Mm.
he put on our nature as this huge debt, and we're his human portion, and therefore we have to grow divine. And
Mm.
then that's why it always gets. Our life is a paradox, truth and falsehood,
Mm.
joy and sorrow.
Mm.
The only key is God.
Mm.
It's a paradox with God for key. It basically is a statement or a proposition that seems self-contradictory,
Mm.
absurd, but in reality expresses a possible truth. And we find these paradoxes, seeming paradoxes, all the time. It's um, of an inert motion. There's a motion inert. It's a stillness. You can
Yes.
have see things like that. So we'll move on now into the next page
Yeah.
because there's a lot to tell you here.
But meanwhile, but meanwhile, all is a shadow cast by a dream, and to the musing and immobile spirit, life and himself don the aspect of a myth, the burden of a long, unmeaning tale.
Yeah, everything seems to be an unmeaning tale, and
Mm.
all these great philosophers of the 19th and 20th centuries, who found nothing true in the world, nothing worth living for, and spoke about it in nihilism and existentialism and all these different terms that came about. And so we're seeing that now. And now we're in uh, we're in this incredible yoga of the soul's release because Ashwapati or Sri Aurobindo is going through all of this. So carry on.
For the key is hid and by the inconscient kept. The secret God beneath the secret God beneath the threshold dwells.
Yes, he dwells beneath the threshold. That we know what the threshold is. I think I told you the story once about sending Mother a long playing record of the Doors,
Mm.
and someone else sent her another rock and roll group.
Mm.
And I sent Mother 50 long playing records.
Mm.
50. She listened to one each day.
Mm.
I had written her this letter asking her to tell me what was the last great classical music she heard.
Mm.
She underlined everything and she said, of these I have heard almost everything they have written. And then,
Oh.
she narrowed down below, these I have heard nothing at all.
Mm.
I was working in a record store with a musicologist, and we chose 50 records from that time that Mother hadn't heard anything to the very present. Electronic music, rock and roll, everything. So what Mother said about rock and roll, she said, they are standing on a threshold,
Mm.
but they don't know yet how to cross over.
Mm.
Ah, incredible. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you. So, okay, we can move on then, and you can read a little more.
In a body obscuring the immortal spirit, a nameless resident vesting unseen powers, with matter's shapes and motives beyond thought, and the hazard of an unguessed consequence, an omnipotent, indiscernible influence, he sits, unfelt by the form in which he lives, and veils his knowledge by the groping mind.
Hmm. Perfect description of the divine presence.
Mm.
Who is in us? We see that he's taken a body that obscures himself.
Mm.
We don't see the divine in each other,
Mm.
and yet he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was this man, you might look him up one day, Ingo Swann.
Mm.
You heard of him?
Yes, I have.
Who could view things all over the universe.
Mm.
He gave the NASA people a perfect description of the planet Pluto and
Mm.
what they would find there.
Oh,
They thought it was all false, and now everything is proving true.
wow.
He saw it. He saw it. They
Mm.
said, why don't you tell us what's in the next room? He said, why make it so easy? And they said, okay, tell us about Pluto. And
Right.
he also said that the moon,
Mm.
the people lived on the moon.
Mm.
I have a question now. Why did America and Russia stop going to the moon after
Mm.
the moonlight?
Mm.
No one can answer that question.
Yeah. I've read this book by Ingo Swann. He said people on the moon threatened them not to come back. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we got red.
Mm.
A nameless resident.
Mm.
Mine is a nameless resident in us.
Mm.
How can we name him? We don't
Yeah.
even know. We don't know him yet.
Mm.
Unknown to us. And what was that other word? The omnipotent.
Omnipotent, indiscernible influence.
He is all powerful.
Mm.
He is omnipotent, and yet he's an influence that's indiscernible to us
Yeah.
until we can make that firm contact with
Mm.
his presence.
Mm.
For that, we know that so many things have to go.
Mm.
Desire, mental ideas,
Mm.
bodies, lassitude. Sri Aurobindo didn't like exercise for himself, but he said what Mother had done in the ashram was what they should do.
Right.
We have a long road ahead, and
Yeah.
see you next week. And
Yes. Thank you.